Imagine accessing the full potential of your mind. What if you could direct your thoughts and emotions to create the you want to be so that you automatically create the life you want to live? That's the power of neuro linguistic programming when used correctly. I know because I've done it. But here's the secret, it's not only about techniques, it's about mastering the right thought patterns. Today, I'm going to reveal the 5 mind frames that I used to master NLP. These are not just ideas, they're game changers. They will completely transform how you approach whatever you apply them to. Want to transform yourself and your life? Stick with me. What you're about to learn could be the key to unlocking a level of mastery you never thought possible. So let's dive in and start your journey to becoming an NLP master, a journey to mastering your life. And that's what I always tell people. Don't just try to master one piece of NLP so that you can go and apply it and do whatever it is that you want to apply it to. I mean, that's how most people start. But if you really want to get the most out of it, take on the approach that it's about mastering your life. And when you take that holistic approach, I assure you it's going to be much, much better. So I'm going to switch over to my slides here. All right, all that looks good. And let's get into it. So these are the 5 mind frames to master NLP, unlocking success through thought patterns. And this is the reason why I wanted to do this is because this is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. They just want to learn one NLP technique after another. It's good that you're eager to learn the techniques. But what I see 2 problems is people not spending enough time with a technique to truly master it. And they think it's all about techniques, and that is just not what NLP is about. And by the end of this, you'll understand what I mean. All right. So the first thing, this actually is the one that came easy to me once I had already started learning NLP, but not before. And that is your beliefs are not real. And now this might seem obvious to most people when you just see this, but this is not obvious when you're actually looking at your own beliefs or thinking through your own beliefs. And the reason why this was easy for me when I started NLP training was because I spent a lot of time in non duality. I'd been studying non duality for a long time. I had a mentor, I did a lot of meditating, and it became very clear to me that beliefs are not real, though they feel very real. And what NLP does is it calls that into question. And if your beliefs are not real, then there's a possibility of changing them. Unconscious beliefs is what governs your reality. When you think about whatever, when you think about the reality you're living in right now, as real as it may seem, it is a construct of your beliefs. And most of those beliefs are unconscious. So when you hold this loosely, when you're willing to hold your beliefs loosely and realize that they are not real, the things that are governing your reality as you know them are not actually real. Now this can freak people out a little bit. And it is a rabbit hole you can go down, which I don't necessarily recommend, maybe a little bit to understand it better. The main thing here though is to be willing to question what seems real. That is a level of open-mindedness that will speed up your ability to learn NLP. I saw a lot of people, especially in the first trainings that I attended, really struggling with this. And this was a real obstacle because they were like, well, wait a minute, but this is, what I'm thinking is actually real. I can, it's real. It's like, well, actually, it's real in your mind. And that's why it seems so real. You haven't cast enough doubt on it to be able to loosen it up and change it. Everything is subjective. Everything is subjective. Everything that you're experiencing is subjective. It cannot be objective when it's passing through the limitations of your subjective filters. You are processing information through your brain that is arriving as neurological impulses in your body. The information that's coming through has to go through that entire process. And by the time it does, It's already passed through your beliefs, which have filtered it even further, and your evaluations of the world, and it has created the reality that looks familiar to you, the reality in some cases that you want, the reality in some cases that you don't want. But know that it is all subjective. So, what you want to start exploring when it comes to NLP is something a fact or is it a belief? What feels like an indisputable fact may just be a belief. I'm not saying that there aren't facts. We do have facts. Things do exist. We have a picture of a tree here. If you walk outside and you see a tree, yes, you are looking at that tree, though a tree is an evaluation of what that thing is, and that's another that's another rabbit hole we could go down. But things like I'm not good enough. It may seem like an indisputable fact when you try something and you fail at it that you are not good enough. But that's an evaluation. We could really break this down, and I'll show you how we break this down in a minute. But this we have these types of beliefs, and they just seem like indisputable facts. How do you think that belief, as if it's taken for reality, how do you think this is affecting your reality? A belief like that. And for most people, this feels absolutely real, like an indisputable fact. Therefore, they live in accordance to that. With NLP, we look at this and we cast doubt on it right away. Well, what does that exactly mean? And then we can start to break this down and find a better belief to replace this with. And this is where meta model questions come in. When people see the meta model in their first training, they often kind of push themselves through it. They don't really understand what is the importance of the meta model. And this is so unfortunate because the meta model is probably the most important model to learn in NLP because it really is the keys to all of how all of NLP functions. Now, I've done videos about that, so I'm not going to get into that too much. But the meta model questions are those questions that break down what you think is reality, but turns out to be your beliefs, your evaluations, your biases. So we want to use meta model questions to challenge assumptions and uncover deeper meanings. By asking the right questions, you can create greater accuracy in your map of reality. You can also add more resources and more choices. So in NLP, we talk a lot about map of reality. We don't say your reality as an objective thing that is absolutely true. We say your map of reality because that is what we're functioning from. And this is what I mean by all of your reality is subjective because you're functioning from a map of reality, not the totality of an objective reality. That would be too much. That would be impossible. So NLP seeks to uncover that map, especially to uncover the limitations of that map. And because the territory, we say the map is not the territory is infinitely more vast than the map. It has a lot more content than the map itself. If you think about it, comparing a map to the territory. And so, what we can do when we're struggling with a limitation is use meta model questions to access more of the territory for greater accuracy. Is it really true that I am not good enough? I'm not good enough for whatever it is that I was attempting. Well, when you try to answer that question, you have to go into the deeper structure. You have to go back to the territory and say, is that absolutely true? And then when you explore that, you realize, well, no, there's so much more here going on. So that's not even accurate. So, what would be a more accurate way to look at this? Maybe at this point, at this time, when I tried this thing, I did not have the ability to succeed at it. That's a much more accurate way of looking at something than just saying I'm not good enough. So we ask these questions, the meta model questions, to get to the deeper meanings. And my point about this is that before we even get here, you have to be willing to question your reality. You have to be willing to look at reality as not fixed, not a solid objective reality that is unmoving. And this, like I said, stumps a lot of people when they first start learning NLP. Thankfully, I'd already done a lot of non-duality, which calls all that into question. So by the time I got to NLP, I was very willing to question my reality, very willing to question my beliefs, and I was very willing to go deeper into my unconscious beliefs and bring them to the surface and bring them into consciousness so that I could do something with them. And that is a foundation of NLP. That you want to bring the unconscious processes like beliefs into consciousness so that we can then change them. Also, you want to ask these questions to bring more resources into your map of reality, bring more choices into your map of reality. This is the function of the meta model. And you could even say that that is the function of NLP, constantly enriching your map of reality with greater accuracy, more resources, and more choices. That is, those are the things that separate you between what the life you're living and the life you want to live, between the present state and whatever it is you desire, the desired state. Now we talk about hypnotic trance versus wakefulness. And this is one of the things that the meta model does. It will wake you up out of your hypnotic trance. Hypnotic trance is very similar to beliefs. Our trances can feel very real. We're on autopilot most of the time, supported by our assumptions of what's true and what is not true. We're often asleep at the wheel, unable to see the patterns of our habits and routines. Using NLP, going meta to those patterns, waking up to the patterns so you can control them rather than being controlled by them. So we want to wake up to the truth of what is actually happening. This can be very uncomfortable for people. Why would this be uncomfortable for people? Well, if you got all of your routines and everything set up on autopilot, and you probably have had this experience, it can be as simple as you go to a store and you've been to the store hundreds of times and you know where everything is at. And so in your mind, you're going to show up at that store and you're just going to walk in and grab exactly what it is that you want. But you get to the store and they've done some redecorating and they've moved everything around. And now you don't know where the thing is that you want. And you could easily just walk around or go ask someone, but this irritates us. Why? Because we had it all figured out. It's a total disruption, and it takes us out of our comfort zone. And so trances are powerful. Trances can be leveraged and used. That's what the Milton model is about, right? We can use it to work on ourselves, and you can use it to work with other people and be very influential, or even therapy. The main thing here is to be willing to wake up to a bigger, greater truth. And that will be uncomfortable sometimes. So the main thing here is to be willing to be uncomfortable, be willing to wake up from your trance. When I think about the depression, I experienced depression twice. And when I look back at that, I could see that I was in a trance, a depression trance. My fear about waking up from that was that I was not going to solve all of the problems that I was hyper focused on that was depressing me. Wait a minute, you're telling me I need to open up my attention to other things that are going on in my life, especially the things that are going well? That felt very uncomfortable. I didn't want to do that. I thought, well, if I do that, I'm not going to solve these problems. But that was the opposite was true. When you're hyper focused on the problem, you can't see the resources, you can't see the answers, you can't see greater accuracy in your map of reality. So we need, just like our beliefs, we need to be able to step back from our trances and wake up from them. And some simple things that what I'm calling trances is your morning routine, your commute to work. Most of the time, we're in a trance, and when something disrupts that trance, like maybe there's a traffic, or maybe there's a roadblock, or maybe uh, somebody called you in the morning and gave you bad news, and that disrupted your morning routine. Maybe it wasn't even bad news, but somebody called you and it just disrupted that. So we have to be willing to allow the disruption of our hypnotic trances, especially the ones that are not serving us. So that was the first one. And so let's get into that everything is subjective. This is a very important mind frame because that is what NLP is focused on. It is the study of our experience, or it is, they say, the study of subjective experience. But as I'm going to explain here, all experience is subjective. It is implied that when you talk about an experience, You are talking about your subjective take on it. Your just all experience is subjective. So that's what I was just saying here. Recognize that all experience is subjective. Experience itself is a subjective filter that you are putting on objective reality. Okay. When you can grasp this, and learning NLP is going to come much, much easier for you. So, how is it that experience is subjective? This ties a lot of people's brain in a knot. So, let's untie it. Okay. The truth is, well, I like to say it like this: you have never experienced a beginning nor an end. And then people go, well, what are you talking about? I've done things and it had a start point and it had an end point. So how is it I've never experienced a beginning and an end? And I mean, when I say experience, you have not truly experienced like in an objective way. So first of all, when you were born, you didn't, your mind wasn't mature enough, I guess I could say, to string together what we call experience, a beginning, middle, and an end of something. It was like suddenly the lights turned on and there you were in a world. And so you don't actually have an experience of this. Yes, it happened. We can definitely say that it happened, but you don't have an experience of it. You don't really even remember it. Some people always come back and say, "Well, no, I do have some flashes of memory." You don't even know if that's the memory of you being born. Maybe there was, maybe there's some of that, but all memory is reconstructive. So you don't even know if that's the actual memories that you had of when you were born. Now, the other thing I know about you, if you're watching this, you are not dead. So you have not experienced a true ending. You have only experienced one continuous consciousness. Even when you're sleeping, there's a level of consciousness. Even when people are in comas, there is a level of consciousness. The only time there is no consciousness is when you're dead. So all you have been doing since you were born is one consistent, unbroken stream of consciousness. And because that is too much for us to handle, that is too much for us to process, we have to break this up into chunks. And that's how we create experiences. We mark in and we mark out, and we say, this is when the beginning of this experience happened, and this is when the end of it happened. And then, of course, there's a middle because you have a beginning and an end. I assure you, though, this is not always shared with other people. And this is how I'm able to say that experience is subjective, because you might have been in the same time and same place as someone else, but they may perceive the beginning of that experience happening at a completely different time than you did and ending at a completely different time than you did. If you go to see a movie with a friend, what is your sense of when that experience began? Maybe it's when the movie started, but for your friend, it might have been when you guys went for drinks afterward, or before rather, or it might have been when you guys decided that you were going to go see a movie. So everybody's beginning is going to be slightly different, and everybody's ending is going to be slightly different. And this is what makes experience subjective. It's not one set objective thing. Here's where this started, and here's where this ended. It's how did you experience that? And this is how we can begin to hold our experiences loosely, realizing that whatever meaning we're making of a particular experience can be changed. The meaning can be changed. How we change that meaning is by changing the scope of that experience. And one way that we can do that is by changing when it started and when it ended. We can open that up or we can shrink it down. That's what we call a time frame. Okay. And I've done videos about that, so I don't want to get off track here. But it's the mind frame, the mindset of everything is subjective. And again, your reality is not objective. Recognize that you perceive and interpret information through personal filters and biases that shape your reality. And this is really the essence of NLP. When you really start tapping into this understanding, learning NLP becomes so much easier because now you know what we're doing. You know the bigger picture of what we're doing. We are altering the meanings of your experiences to serve you better. And here's the thing that I think I see a lot of people struggle with, and I would have struggled with this probably in my early 20s because I was looking for this sort of ultimate truth. And I beat myself senseless trying to find it. And I just wish that somebody had come along, like maybe my mentor, Steve Andreas, but I didn't know him at the time, and just told me, forget it. Ultimate truth is inaccessible. Accuracy is important, but absolute truth is unattainable, nor is it even necessary. I've even heard some people say they did psychedelics, like say like ayahuasca, and I'm no stranger to some of these things. I haven't done ayahuasca, but uh, and some people have come back and said, you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, it was amazing, and it changed my life," and sometimes it actually does. But I've actually heard some people, very very smart people, say, I accessed a level of truth that was not helpful to me, and it took me down a dark path. It was too much, and I was like, I know exactly what they're talking about. There is such a thing as accessing too much truth and being overwhelmed, or putting too much attention on the stuff that just does not serve you and will bring you down. We can put our focus on the horrors of the world, right? And that would be true. That would be accurate. That exists. But if and especially if there's nothing you can do about it, of what good is it to put your attention on that? My mentor used to say, your mind is the only home you will ever truly know. Imagine going to someone's home, their actual home, and just seeing like the most violent pictures on the wall everywhere, in every bedroom, every room, living room, kitchen, bedrooms, bathrooms. Wha- what would you think that person feels when they wake up every morning and throughout their day are surrounded by these images? That's probably not it's probably not serving them too well. But the person could even make the argument, it happened. These images are real life. Somebody snapped a picture of all these horrible things. Is that really serving you just because it's true? Or you could decorate your home with beauty, with things that inspire you, and they are all true as well. You're just choosing to access a certain portion of the truth. And I am by no means saying that we should ignore the horrible things that do happen in the world. We have to accept those. We don't want to block those out. And that's another problem, that when people are practicing NLP, when they start to become good at it, they start to block these things out. They start to block out all of the mistakes they've ever made, all of the imperfections of themselves, all of the imperfections of their life. And this does not serve you. It will not serve you. Do not do that. However, you do not have to put the majority of your attention on those imperfections and then on those mistakes and failures. We just want to accept them so that we can learn from them. So truth can only be truth when it's complete, the whole truth. And this is what science does, right? We're trying to find that observable, objective truth while knowing that ultimately it is impossible. And that's one of the beautiful things about science. In one sense, its objective is going to fail no matter what. But in the process of approaching the world this way, to find out what is observably true, we do find some extraordinary things and some extraordinarily useful things that, of course, we use in technology and to make our lives easier and better. What you need is enough truth to understand how to get what you want and no more. And I'm not saying get what you want as in be greedy and take things from other people. Get what you want in the sense of being fulfilled, which would include helping others and having the kind of connections with people that you want to have. All right. So we've covered two so far. Now, the depth of your potential is measured by the actions you take. This is so, so important. And as you can imagine, this is not only useful in your approach to mastering NLP, this is useful everywhere. The depth of your potential is measured by the actions you take. So often, I've met people who I would say this happens a lot and say like the law of attraction and the law of assumption, where they just kind of want to visualize things and they think it's all going to come to them, like Amazon Prime is just going to deliver everything that they want to their front door just because they visualized it. And it's like that's not going to happen. And it's unfortunate when people get into NLP and they think the same thing. They think, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to play around with the pictures in my head, I'm gonna play around with the submodalities, I'm going to move some things around, and then boom, it's just automatically my life's gonna turn around and be everything that I want it to be. And what I see people doing when they actually do become rather good at NLP and they become able to get into their head, find out what's in there, and then make some of these modifications, is what they end up doing is they create these incredible fantasies in their minds, and they really get off on these fantasies. It probably does give them a bit of a dopamine hit, and they fall in love with that. And then when someone like me, or they hire someone like me to coach them, and I say, hey, you actually have to like do something about this. You can't just be imagining all this stuff and fantasizing about it. I become the downer, the person who's bringing them back down to earth, and a lot of times they will reject that. This takes action, especially practicing NLP. I've seen that too. Oh, I went to a training and they said I got it all in my unconscious, so it's all there. I already know NLP and I'm certified. I got a certificate, and and they never take action. They never practice. They never apply it to their goals. They never approach any limiting beliefs that they have to transform them, and they just think that I can do all of this in my head or do it all on paper, and that's fine. No, no, and no. You do have to take action. Action is you will learn far more than by taking an action than just by writing stuff out or journaling. And by the way, I love journaling, and I think it's very, very useful. But you're going to learn so much more when you actually take an action and you get a response from that action. I tried something, I failed. What was the result? Okay, let me use that result to try it again and factor in, integrate this new information. Nothing can top that as far as figuring this thing out for yourself, figuring out your life. And by the way, I think it's a good time to mention we are doing a training this weekend. It's a 2-day training. Uh, it starts in the morning Pacific Standard Time. I'm in California. It is free. You will find it in the description of this video. Just click on it, reserve your spot, and come train with us. And I guarantee you're going to walk away from that. You're not going to be the same person after that training, and you're going to have a plan and a vision to execute for the rest of this year, at least. Perhaps even the rest of your life. So make sure you get in on that. Like I said, you'll find it in the description of this video. Like I was saying, you cannot just think or visualize your way to success. It takes action. And this is also what amazes me is the TOTE, T-O-T-E, which stands for test, operate, test, exit. This is an essential part of NLP. And it blows my mind when people learn this in NLP and they're one of those people who doesn't think that they need to take any sort of action. And it's like, did you learn TOTE, test, operate, test, exit? Because that's exactly what that is. It's I don't know if I call it a model. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but it emphasizes the importance of continuous evaluation and adjustment in achieving your desires. Testing requires action. So what does this mean? Let's say I'm hammering a nail. Okay. So I start hammering it. That's the operation, the hammering. Or maybe we could start with the test. The test would be, okay, I want to get this nail into this wood, and right now I can see clearly that that has not happened yet. So I put the nail in the wood and I start hammering. That's the operation. And then I run my hand on the wood and I can see that the nail hasn't been fully pushed into the wood. That's another test. I'm testing it. So I keep hammering, operation. And then when I get it down what I think has worked, I run my hand over it and I feel the nail flush with the wood. That's my test. And I can tell that it worked. And so I exit. Test, operate, test, exit. And this is essential for NLP. And so if anyone's teaching you NLP and they say, well, you don't really need to take any actions, you just, do these things with your mind and voila, it's going to happen, then they've totally missed this piece of NLP. Test, operate, test, exit. So you test out your strategies and see what response you get, and you keep modifying the strategy, or you throw it out until you get what you want and then exit. And this plays right into failure as feedback. That's one of the presuppositions in NLP. Failure as feedback. View failures as valuable lessons that guide your learning and growth. Failure is a necessary part of the process of success and excellence. I It's amazing working with people and they just will not try something. They won't even try, and it's like, okay, I don't you're missing out on like one half of the part. You want one part of it without doing the other part of it. Failure is a part of success. There's no way to get around that. There's no way that uh, to put that kind of expectation on yourself that you're going to succeed every single time, just on the first try. And that's crazy. But a lot of people are doing that. And in NLP trainings, I was amazed at how many people would get so down after trying a technique and it didn't work for them. And because they felt bad about it, they didn't practice it again. It's like, how are you supposed to get good at this if you're going to put that burden on yourself? First of all, that it has to succeed every single time, especially the first time. That's just too much of a burden to put on you. Failure says nothing about your value or your worth, and I think that this is the thing that is really, when it comes to actually um, taking action, this is what is really getting in people's way. They run this process in their head. They say, okay, if I take this action and it doesn't work the way that I want it to, then that is a failure. And right now, I'm clinging to what little self worth I have. And that's where a lot of people find their way to NLP. They're clinging to what little self worth they have. So they want to learn NLP to boost their worth, their value. And if I go out there and I'm just clinging to what little self worth I have, and I go out there and I try something and I fail, then that brings my self worth down even more. And I just can't take that. So I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to wait. And then you wait forever. And then you never do anything. You never take an action. So you could say you never failed, but yes, you have, because you never succeeded. That is a failure. You never tried. So this is something I've covered in many of my other videos. There is no such thing as self worth. There is no way to measure your worth. There is no objective measurement that can measure a person's worth. I know that it feels real. It feels real because of what I've already covered so far. It's a belief. It's also a trance at the same time. What happens is when you try to apply a metaphor to real life, you often will go into trance, or you will create erroneous beliefs that will limit you. You cannot apply what is a metaphor to something that is literal and actual, and you need steps and details to perform. Self-worth, you cannot find a way to measure that, so it's not real. It's actually a metaphor. Self-worth is a metaphor. But when you try to apply that, what happens? Well, because there's no way to do it, you start making up ways to do it, really destructive ways of doing it, like comparing yourself to others, which will never help you. Judging yourself, judging others, trying to push yourself up by looking at people you think are of lower self-worth than you. This is all very, very destructive. Okay. So I know that for most of you, the feeling of self-worth feels real. It feels as real as the walls in your home, right? And this is what I was talking about, calling that into question. It is not real. So hold it loosely, call it into question, and start asking good meta model questions around this idea of self worth. And it will fall apart because it's not real. It is a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's not real. So if that's what's holding you back from taking action, dismantle that. And the sooner you do that, the better off you will be. When you can imagine just being able to go and try anything you want, or put together a goal and a strategy and a plan to achieve it. And no matter how many times you fail, and it will suck, even when you're not employing self-worth, it will suck to fail. It always does. But just imagine being able to fail without your self-worth being attached to that. What would you not try? You will be unstoppable. And again, it kind of gives me goosebumps when I think about it. Like, this is what NLP is all about. This is what it's all about. It's about taking those things that we think are real, that hold us back, and realizing that they're not. They're just a construct of your map of reality, which means it can be changed. All right. What's next? Consistency over intensity. I like intensity. I love intensity. I went to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class this morning, and it's intensity. It's very intense. So I do love intensity, but I do know what's more important than intensity, and that is consistency. Consistency, when I think about all the greatest successes that I have ever had in my life, those came from consistency over than burst of intensity. It's great if you have both. That's that's nice, but intensity is not going to get you there. Consistency will get you there. Persistence will get you there, and that's a part of consistency. Persistence and consistency is greater than intensity. Now, how does this apply to learning NLP? It is better to practice NLP every day for 30 minutes rather than practice 1 day a week for 3.5 hours. And I just realized I spelled week wrong. I spelled it like being weak rather than strong. Week as in 7 days in a week. Effort over time leads to mastery and effortless application. So there are people who they put it off, they put it off, they put it off, and they go, "Oh yeah, I got to practice," and so they try to pack it all into like 1 day, or sometimes even 1 month, or once in a month. That's not going to work. Make NLP a part of your life. Do it every single day, even if it's for 30 minutes. I recommend an hour. And if you have the time and you have the energy, go for 2 hours, go for 3 hours, but only if you can be consistent about that. The consistency is going to take you much, much further. Over a period of, say, a year, being consistent daily is going to be much more powerful. And here's the reason why. It's not that 3.5 hours once a week does nothing. It will. You will learn. You will get better at 3.5 hours once a week. But most people will not keep that up. To be persistent and intense at the same time, most people can't keep that up. At some point, you burn out. So you have to pull back. But most people just flat out quit. They go, "Oh, it's not working." And it's like, well, no, it actually is slower. People think it's faster because it feels that way, because that intensity makes it feel like you're getting ahead. But then you'll step back and realize you're not getting as far ahead as you think you are. Just be persistent, and be persistent enough, like do small enough chunks to make sure that you will stay consistent and that you will persist. In other words, don't burn yourself out. And I've taken that to its limit many times when learning NLP, because I did when I would get into it, especially in the early when I was new to it, I just couldn't get enough, and I would keep going and going, and then realize, okay, yeah, I need to take a break. And this is where we integrate NLP into your life as a daily practice. Find ways to integrate NLP techniques and skills into everything you do every day. And I get so many questions about this. Well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And it's like, okay, I didn't have a roadmap for this. In fact, this was one of my great struggles. And this is one of the reasons why I started teaching NLP, is because there were so many things that I felt were missing, that weren't available as far as how to learn NLP, how to get good at it. And so I had to create it. And one of them was my YouTube channel. I used my YouTube channel to get better at it, to get better at NLP. I thought to myself, okay, I know these concepts pretty well. I can make them work. And this is 8 years ago. And I thought, if I could get on camera and explain them, then it will force me to have to learn them even better. Because you've probably often heard, it's one thing to learn something. When you really want to get good at it, go and teach it. And that's when you really have to figure out, well, what does this actually mean and how does it actually work? So I did a video every single day when I first started YouTube. I did a video every single day about NLP for 8 months straight. That really pushed me to have a skill level that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Not only that, I had a journal, I had an NLP journal. I wrote in it in the morning and I wrote in it in the evening. In the morning, I set an intention of what I was going to do. And at the end of the day, I wrote, what did I find? And if I didn't get anything out of it, I still wrote that. I said, okay, I tried this out, didn't get anything out of it. I'll try it at another time. On to the next thing for the next day. I did a lot of sensory acuity and calibration practices every single day with people who didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't tell them. It wasn't like I grabbed them and said, hey, I'm practicing NLP. Do this with me. I just, every single conversation I would have, I would have one singular focus every single day, like use a meta model pattern, maybe use two meta model patterns, or notice where people's eyes move and listen to what they're saying as their eyes are moving, match those up. Pay attention to that every single conversation throughout that entire day. That's what I would do. So I incorporated it daily. And after a while, you do this for like a year. And that's what I'm talking about being persistent and consistent. Do this for like a year. And then you don't have to practice anymore because it starts to automatically happen. You start to notice people's uh you start to pick up on people's posture and their skin tone changes and their meta model violations and their limiting beliefs, and you can't even turn it off after a while. You just hear these things, you see these things, and then you're practicing an NLP without even trying. And it's very similar to learning a language. After a while, like, I don't feel like I'm practicing English right now. I'm just speaking because I've done it for so many years. It's not really a practice. And that's what NLP will become if you keep practicing it consistently enough and you find a way and you're creative about it every single day, incorporating it into your life. It is challenging at first, but after a while, it becomes as simple as speaking your native language. It will become that automatic for you. All right, let's get into owning your experiences. This is where radical self-reliance, which was something that I don't think Bandler and Grinder, the creators of NLP, ever really talked about. Maybe they did, but this was obviously something that they truly believed in. This is one of those things that really brought those two together, even though they were disagreed on a lot of other things and were very different people. This idea of taking ownership of your experiences is core to NLP. Now, a lot of people have a lot of um, misunderstandings about this, and we'll get into that. You are responsible for your experiences, whether you realize it or not. Learning NLP is about realizing that responsibility so that you can make your experiences what you want them to be. If you don't own your experiences, you can't change them. If you have these negative experiences and you don't own them and you blame other people for them or you blame outside circumstances for them, as soon as you do that, you disempower yourself. There's nothing you can do at that point. If you approach learning NLP with the mindset of, I am responsible for my experiences, I want to learn more about how I am experiencing what I'm experiencing. And I want to learn more so that I can also change that experience, optimize that experience to give me the kind of experiences that supports me being who I want to be and living a life that I want to live. And this is challenging because it's really easy to blame. It's really easy to judge and say, well, this is the reason why I don't have what I want. This is the reason why I'm not who I want to be. It was my childhood. I hear this all the time when I'm coaching people. I say, okay, so how do you think, what do you think's stopping you? And they go, well, when I was a kid and in my childhood, such and such happened. And that's probably all true. I'm not denying that, a lot of bad things can happen in our childhood that can affect us much later. Um, I'm one of those people. Uh, but the moment that I shift it away from me and say, "Oh, but it's like something that happened to me in the past," well, we can't change the past, and so I'm giving all of these reasons why I'm not doing anything else, that I am a certain way, and it's not my fault, and that just is completely disempowering. And so, responsibility in your experiences is not about blame and shame, and this is where people go dark with this, or they get if they push back on it and they're saying, "Oh, so you're saying this thing happened to me and that was my fault? How was that my fault? This just happened." Okay, I get it. Bad stuff happens, especially to good people. Bad stuff happens. Okay, that is completely out of your control. That is a happening. That is a fact that it happened, and like I said, just because our reality is subjective does not mean that things don't happen. Things do happen, and there are facts, but your experience is your experience. And we know this, like I mentioned earlier, because two people can be in the exact same place at the exact same time and the same happening happens to both of them. And one person walks away and says, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And another person walks away and says, that was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So, how is that possible? subjective experience. And when we take ownership of these experiences, then we can actually change them. So understand that experience is your creation, not anyone else's. Now, somebody can go and punch you in the face. And yes, you could say that factually happened, right? But your experience of it is your creation. The happening is outside of your creation, but the experience of it, what you take away from it, how you evaluate that, whatever meaning you give that is yours. That is your experience. That is your creation. And when we're taking full ownership of these experiences, then we get to shape the meanings we want of who we are and the life that we're living. And we want to shape that for our fulfillment, our greatest fulfillment. And what is that? What is going to give us our greatest fulfillment is by fulfilling our values, by fulfilling our potential. Learn NLP not to deny what happens when you don't like what life hands you. And this is one of the ways that people go wrong. Like I said, they try to rid themselves of all of their imperfections. They try to rid themselves of all of the mistakes they've ever made. We do not want to do that. Okay, so we do not want to deny the happenings, right? The things that happen when we don't like what life hands us. We want to learn NLP to shape the meanings of what happens into experiences that serve your potential and your fulfillment. All right, I got a bonus for you. I figured you might want a little bit more, and so let's check out the bonus. The bonus is keep learning NLP fun and playful. And this goes for anything. I think the times that I've quit something is when I stopped being creative and imaginative and keeping it fun and playful. And then sometimes you might say, okay, well, this just isn't for me and I want to go learn something else. That's fine too. If you really want to learn NLP, make it fun and make it playful. And it is absolutely fun and playful if that's the experience you choose to have with it. Incorporate elements of fun and play to make your NLP journey enjoyable and effective. And believe me, you'll be much more effective when you're more lighthearted and playful. Fun learning boosts motivation, creativity, and overall understanding of NLP concepts. You're going to want to practice every day if practicing NLP is fun, right? You will feel extra motivated to do it. And that is pretty much it. So let me come back over here and see if there's any questions. All right, was that helpful? All right, questions. Does Fox News use I watched a video that said they do. What are your thoughts on it? I would say most media uses NLP. Somebody swore up and down that Obama used NLP, and when I looked at the examples that they were talking about, I was like, okay, I don't know if Obama sat down and took a formal NLP training, but it's there's a lot of NLP that's been incorporated into things that are about that have to do with influence and even manipulation. So I don't know specifically if Fox News is using it, but there is a conservative group that focuses on studying language and how to shape messaging when things happen, how to shape the messaging to make it sound not as bad if it works against them, and to make something sound better if it works in their favor. So there are people who are definitely studying it, and I can't imagine that they would completely skip past NLP in that study. I'm sure they do cover it, but I don't have any insider knowledge on that. And I'm not comfortable saying just by watching it. Oh yes, they're doing it. I will say that they are using language to their benefit and for their messaging. That's definitely true. NLP has been used by media for a long time. That is why people are entrained so easily. I just look for exaggerations, pregnant pauses, head nods. And okay, my presentations are much better. Thank you. Okay, so and then people are saying that it was helpful. That's awesome. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll see you on Saturday. Missed the start of the stream. Can you cover what time the weekend sessions are, please? I think they're just go to the link because Sometimes we start at different times. I know it's in the morning in Pacific Standard Time. Just click on that link and it will show you, and you can find what time in your time zone it starts. Obama used parts integration into speeches, bringing America together. One part this, one part that, but together. Quite possibly. Okay, that is all I have. If there's no more questions, and great. Well, I hope this was helpful. And mastering NLP has been one of the greatest journeys in my life ever. And I would be here for another hour or so if I listed off all the benefits that I've gotten out of learning NLP and completely transforming my life. So it's an incredible journey. I just wish more people had access to it and were doing it. And that's part of what I'm doing here by putting these videos out and these presentations, because I know whenever I was learning it, there wasn't that much out there. I mean, there was plenty of people teaching NLP and charging for it, but not a lot of people were telling people how to practice it and how to approach it. So use these mind frames to approach learning NLP and pretty much anything you do, and you're going to accelerate your progress, and you're going to enjoy it more. So, and that'll keep you motivated to keep coming back and learning more and more. All right, I'm glad you loved the presentation. Thank you. Okay, take care, everybody. I look forward to seeing you this weekend. We're going to have a lot of fun. It will be interactive. And like I said, you're going to walk away with a lot. Let's see. It sounds fascinating. Started NLP for years. The point around giving up resonates. Yeah. That goes back to the persistence. A little bit every single day goes a lot further than trying to pack it all in, say like in 1 week or 1 month. And that's why, like, if you go to a training that's like a 2 week training in person, like that's great, um, because their trainings sometimes are like 1 week or 3 days. So those trainings are great, but you're not really learning NLP in a 2 week training. Learning NLP comes with the practice, the daily practice. That's when you really learn NLP. You don't really learn it in a training, and that's why I don't like it when people, they're giving out certifications and people think, oh, I have a certification, so I'm NLP certified. I must know NLP. No, you don't. No, you don't. And most institutes are giving out certifications for anybody who just pays their money, and sometimes you don't even have to show up. So it gives you a false sense of knowing NLP when you don't. My first practitioner training that I attended was 2.5 weeks long, which is longer than most of them these days. And when they handed me that certificate on the last day, one thing I knew, I did not know NLP. I knew that the journey was just beginning, and it was. And so I started practicing every single day after that. And that's when I was really learning NLP. All right. Well, see you this weekend, and let's keep the journey going.